first lunch and lawn session for the spring of 2021. We're excited to be here from 12:15 to 1 p.m. every other Wednesday through June 28th for a total of 8 programs. Each session will review a few key lawn topics and answer your questions about lawns and weeds. This program was developed as a virtual counterpart to the Fairfax County Master Gardener's Home Turf Program. Without the ability to do in-person turf evaluations, our goal has been to help county residents understand how to manage and improve the health of their turf. We chose these topics because they're the best ones done in the spring, and they'll cover the fundamentals of turf care and the common turf weeds that are out there now, or will be coming soon. These sessions will be recorded, so if you miss any or simply want to review a topic, they're on the VCE-Fairfax County YouTube channel that'll be referenced at the end of this talk. My name is Tanya, and I'm a member of the Fairfax County Master Gardeners Association. I'm joined today by fellow members Simon, Sheila, and Leslie, who will be teaching us today, and Karen, who is hanging out with us as Zoom support. As you can see, our agenda today is divided into 3 parts. Our first is the main lawn care topic of nutrient management, preparing for turf. Second, the identification and control of our 2 weeds of the week you're likely to encounter in your yard soon, if not already. And finally, we'll discuss some questions we received during registration. And then if we have any time left over, we'll take a look at that chat box. So panel members, I hope you're ready to begin. Today, Simon is launching our series with what to do to prepare for healthy turf. Sheila will cover chickweed, and Leslie will tell us about crabgrass. Simon, unmute yourself and take us away.
Tanya, thanks so much. It's great to be here. And I think with the fantastic weather that we had last week, we're all itching to get out there and start doing stuff. It's been a bit of a downer so far this week. It's going to get wetter, but hopefully better days are ahead for all of us. So look forward to that. So today I'm going to give the main presentation on nutrient management planning for our turf. And I like this photograph. This is Green Springs garden, which is in Fairfax County. And if you haven't been, I strongly recommend you go. It's great gardens to go to. And this lawn, which looks perfect, in actual fact has a lot of weeds. And so I think we just need to be aware that getting the perfect lawn in this part of the world, which is something we'll try and talk a little bit about, is sometimes a very, very difficult task. But as you can see, you can have beautiful greenery with something less than perfection, as Green Springs has shown. Thank you. So I think there's a lot of discussion about grass. There's a turf. There's a lot of people who strongly think we should be having a lot less of it. And I think a lot of us in the Master Gardener program feel that maybe less is better than more. But there certainly is benefits to turf grass. It's these 3 things we have here. It's functional. It withstands the foot traffic and can be established from seeds. So it's easy to grow. You can walk on it. You can play on it. You can have fun on it. It reduces erosion and absorbs contaminants, and also sequesters carbon and reduces dust. This is not to say that there's not arguments against large expanses of turf, and we don't necessarily want to get into that today, but it does certainly have some very important benefits for our gardens, and I think pretty much most of us have some amount of turf in our yard. Thanks. So today we're talking about nutrient plans for our turf and just ways in which we can plan to have a better turf as the days get longer and the days get warmer. So what is the nutrient plan that you can obtain from Master Gardeners Association? It provides information on the application of the right sort of products to be added to improve the quality of your turf. That mainly in this part of the world is lime, but also fertilizer and organic matter. It tells you and provides information on the appropriate amounts to apply, the correct rate to apply them, and when you should be applying them. And we'll come back to the question of timing a little bit later. And it's important that these be applied in the optimal amounts to support healthy plants. And I think the benefit of doing things through Master Gardeners Association and Virginia Cooperative Extension is that the advice you're going to be given will be provided based upon scientific studies and the right and the correct science. Then I think the last point is also important. I think there can be a tendency to over-apply substances to our lawns, particularly fertilizer and nitrogen. We need to be, as part of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, we need to be careful that we are applying correct amounts so that there's not a lot of leaching going into the watershed. I personally live on Lake Barcroft. We have a waterway at the bottom of our yard, and when we did this program several years ago, we were advised not, in fact, to apply anything within a certain distance. I think it's something like 20 feet, 25 feet from the watershed. So we need just to be careful of this question about leaching into waterways. Thanks, Tanya. So I think one of the most important things that the Master Gardener advises, the program advises, is to get a soil test. And a soil test will provide the pH level of the soil. The pH level will determine whether it's acidic or alkaline. In this part of the world, our soils tend to be very dense clay soils, and they tend to be more acidic than alkaline. A soil test will also determine the level of macro and micronutrients which are in your soil, and will give you advice on the sorts of things that can be added to the soil to ensure the correct nutritional balance to get the right sort of turf growing in the most optimal way. So it'll give recommendations for liming and fertilizer for example. So it's very important that we do these, and we strongly recommend that you do get a soil test. You don't just guess. And once you've done this, and they're not particularly costly, and they're done scientifically through Virginia Tech, the results are good for 3 years. So you can rely on the information and the nutrient plan that you receive for the next 2 to 3 years. As indicated, most of our soils in Virginia are acidic. They're clay, the dense clay. And something that I think is important to notice, I always thought that clay was not a good soil, but in actual fact, clay is very rich in nutrients and actually is good soil. One of the problems with clay, of course, because it's very dense, it is difficult in terms of the water management problems around it. But clay is good, and if it's amended, can be extra good. The ideal pH for grasses is between 6.2 to 6.8. And so when you do a soil analysis, it's going to recommend what needs to be added to the soil to actually raise it into that range between 6.2 and 6.8 to give you the most the appropriate soil to support healthy turf. So how do we go about this process? The process involves getting a soil sample kit, which is an information sheet which needs to be filled in, and a soil sample box so that you can actually send away your soil sample to Virginia Tech and to get it analyzed. These 2 pieces of information, the box comes actually folded up and you need to construct the box, but they come from and are available from most county libraries in Fairfax County and from the following garden centers, which I won't read out here, but are easily available. This on the right is a sample of a soil information sheet, sorry. It's most important that you add your name, the date, your email address, your zip code, and then perhaps just a few minutes on the last 2 issues. On the sample identification, as you can see, that's written in there with my name, B1234. That can be any numbers, any letters that you want. The only important thing is that exactly the same sample identification is replicated on the sample box, which we'll explain as in the next couple of slides. Then the other thing that is extremely important is to add whether you have a cool season lawn or a warm season lawn. The codes, which are all on the sheet there, so readily identifiable. Cool season lawns is 202, and the majority of lawns that we do have in this area, I understand, are cool season lawns. So 202 is likely to be the code that you'd put there. But if you happen to have a warm season lawn, like I actually do, you would put a code of 204. Thanks, Tanya. And then it's important to get to fold up the box. Once you've filled in the soil information sheet, fold up your box and to get a soil sample which can be sent off. It's highly recommended that for a large lawn, and we're talking about 1,000 square feet here, that you collect roughly 12 to 15 samples from throughout the lawn area, because different parts of the lawn will have different levels of nutrients in them. You may have amended a particular part of the lawn and not another part of the lawn. One part may be particularly wet and have a different composition, perhaps from a drier part of your lawn. So it's important that you actually sample adequately right throughout your lawn space. Clearly, if you have a smaller lawn, you wouldn't need to do as many as 12 to 15 samples, but you want to get a good sampling across your lawn, so the various corners, the middle, etc. It's recommended that you dig down to a level of 3 to 4 inches, so that you're actually getting soil from under the immediate top. And then you mix all these samples into a plastic bucket. I think the plastic bucket is important, that you don't get sort of any interactive chemicals, a clean plastic bucket, so that you don't get any other elements being mixed in with your soil sample that may throw off the analysis which is done at Virginia Tech. Discard rocks and roots and any other debris that you have in your sample, so that you're only actually sending soil. You don't want to be weighed down with rocks that aren't going to tell you too much about the quality of your soil. And then it's important, of course, to dry out the sample. In discussions we've had, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll put newspaper down in their garage and just put the soil down there, wait a day or two until it's dried out. It's going to be cheaper to send off a less sodden sample down to Virginia Tech, and we really don't need the water, the moisture in the soil sample. And then we send that off to Virginia Tech. The important thing there, you can see a constructed soil box. It's a small box, like about as big as a margarine canister. The important thing is that you put your name and the same sample ID code on the box, so that when these things come in, they can match up your soil sample with the information sheet with your email, and you will email address, and you'll be emailed the results from Virginia Tech once those are available. It normally takes 10 days, a couple of weeks to get the results, and very detailed results, as we'll go into. So here is a sample of a test result. And this is actually from my own lawn. This was done back in the days, pre-COVID days, when we actually had soil samplers came out. So I didn't have to do 15 holes in my own lawn. We actually had the Master Gardener team come out, and we hope we'll get back to those days fairly soon. As you can see, it gives information on the phosphorus, the nitrogen, the calcium, the magnesium, and so on across the top there. It tells whether it's low, whether it's medium, whether it's high, whether it's sufficient. Thanks very much. But then perhaps the most important thing there is that it tells you the pH of the soil. And as I'll show you, I think in the next slide, a pH of 5.4 kind of reflects what we see so much in Virginia. It means I have an acid soil. And we need to actually bring that pH level up into that range that we spoke about, between 6.2 and 6.8, to actually give it a more ideal growing conditions. And then, as you'll see underneath, it gives recommendations on lime and fertilizer. And what we're going to see in Virginia is, because we have so much acidic soil, that almost always there's going to be a lime recommendation which is made. As you can see here, 612 lime recommendations: apply 100 pounds of agricultural limestone, ground pulverized or pelletized. And that's what most of you are probably likely going to see. And also gives a fertilizer recommendation with the appropriate ratios. So just a bit about pH for those that perhaps are like me and don't understand it so well. As we said, the neutral zone is somewhere between, and the ideal for grass, between 6.2 and 6.8, so around 7. Once you get above 7, it becomes alkaline. And once you get below 7, it's acidic. And as I say, that is really what we have here in this part of Northern Virginia, in fact, this part of the United States. I think the last point there is an interesting point. It's not a logarithmic, it is a logarithmic scale. So going from 8.5 to 9.5, you're not going up 1, you're going up 10 times. And going, the difference between 7.5 and 9.5 is 100 times more alkaline difference. So it's not a straight line relationship, it's a logarithmic relationship. So clearly my 5.3 is way below, is way acidic, and really needs a lot of help to bring it into that more neutral zone, which is going to be give me a much better, nicer looking lawn. And there's just a few things there on the side that you can see, things that are alkaline, things that are acidic, just to give you a sort of a benchmark to understand what we're talking about in terms of alkalinity and acidity. I think we all love this graphic. It's one of our favorites. It really shows what happens if you get outside of that range. So my lawn that I was talking about, that 5.3, is way down there below the 5 towards the 4, in fact. So I'm going to get a lot of dandelions and some pretty yellow looking grass unless I do something about it. So I need to push that up. Remember that logarithmic scale, I need to do a lot. It's not just 5 to 6 to 7, it's, it's 100 times to get up to that slightly acidic to neutral lawns into that 6.2 to 6.87 range for that nice, lush, green, healthy lawn. So this is a sample of a example of a nutrient management plan that you'll also get back. So this is what, if you engage with Master Gardeners, the Home Turf program, which we're trying to get across to you today, you'll be given all these recommendations for exactly what is missing in your lawn in terms of macro and micronutrients, what needs to be applied, when it needs to be applied, the amount that needs to be applied, etc. And it's all based on scientific information from Virginia Tech. So this is extremely useful, extremely good information. I'm already beginning to see results in my own lawn. It's only been a year, 18 months. I've still got a way to go. I'm not sure I'll ever have that perfect lawn, but I'm getting closer to perfection with a lot of help from this advice from this nutrient management plan. And this is what you'll get back. This is the good, solid, scientifically based information that the Master Gardener program operating with Virginia Tech will provide to you. So quickly, most lawns, as I said, in this region, they tend to be alkaline. So mostly the recommendation is to add limestone. Limestone, ground form, it can be applied any time of the year except when the ground is frozen. And they're applied with a spreader. Just a quick anecdote from me, it's quite heavy stuff, so I put too much in my spreader and broke my spreader the first time I actually did this. So just be careful how much you put into these spreaders that you buy from your local hardware store. And then there's an application rate there, a generic application rate for lime for most lawns in this area. This next slide is about lowering the pH if you actually need to increase the acidity. I'm not going to spend time on this slide because most of us, this is not our problem. Just two side notes. There are some plants that actually like acid. Lawns are not one of them, but if you're growing hollies, azaleas, and rhododendrons, they actually like a more acidic environment. And so if you have beds of those particular plants, you may be putting on, or you may wish to put on, some more acidic type fertilizers and additives to the soil to help them along. But for the lawns, no. And then this fun factoid, which grateful to Tony for actually pointing out, and be interesting to dig into this deeper and to actually understand why this is the case. But apparently most of the soils in the Western United States actually do tend to be alkaline, whereas most of the soils east of the Mississippi, which is us, tend to be more acidic. So most fertilizers will have nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. this slide really just explains what these three things do. Nitrogen, we know, is very important. It gives that nice green color and the steady growth. It gives a density, a disease resistance, and a stress tolerance. So, so most fertilizers clearly will have nitrogen in them. They have a slow release and a normal release, which you can apply. Phosphorus is less important if you have an established lawn. What phosphorus tends to do is it helps with good root development, and it tends to be in starter fertilizers to help new grass. But if you have an established lawn, phosphorus is less important and probably not so important at all. And then of course potassium, which helps with the uptake of water from the roots into the plant. And then a last slide just on top dressing. The home turf nutrient management plan also advises applying just a small amount of top dressing to a lawn which needs rehabilitating. It helps improve the soil texture and the structure. It helps with the microbial activity, helps retain moisture, and helps soil resist compaction, which, given the fact that we do have clay soils and are very compacted, is important. So this is something that the home turf nutrient management plan will recommend to be done on a periodic basis. This is readily available from hardware stores and from nurseries, and you can apply it as this gentleman is on the right by hand and get a good workout. Just very quickly, and this is something that we'll actually come back to. This is, you can see that cool season grasses to the north and way up into our northern neighbor Canada, whereas the warm season grasses are more of a Texas, Florida phenomenon. And you'll see that there is a transition zone in between, and we fit into that transition zone, and that partly explains why we have difficulty with our grasses here, because we're neither hot nor cold, and so it is a little bit more difficult to manage our grasses there. But we'll come back to that, I think, in some of the questions that have come up through the chat box. And then very lastly, mowing, which I will come up also in some of the subsequent presentations. I won't make a lot of it now, but mowing is very important. Frequent mowing important, leaving your clippings on the lawn so that they actually become a form of compost for the grass that remains. Don't take more than a third of the vegetation in a mowing, don't mow too close, etc. These are very important, and these will also help in once you actually have got the right amount of lime and fertilizer and top dressing down. These are things that will keep ensuring that the lawn continues to develop and grow in an extremely healthy manner all through the summer and into the fall. Thank you very much. I think that concludes my part of the presentation. Oh, sorry, a few references there, which will be available for you to check into. A lot of great references from Master Gardeners and the Home Turf program.
Thank you so very much, Simon. That was a really great intro. Now I think Sheila's going to tell us about something we didn't even know was edible in our yards.
Thank you, Tanya. And Simon, that was a great presentation on turf management. Sounds like I have a lot of work to do on my lawn. Today, I'm going to be talking about the broadleaf weed of the week, which is common chickweed. The Latin name is Stellaria media. Chickweed belongs to the family Caryophyllaceae. I love that name. Take a look at the drawing on this slide. While chickweed typically grows in a prostrate position, and you will see a picture of this growth pattern on a subsequent slide, you are looking at the chickweed plant that is growing in the upright position. You don't see a root in this drawing, but you see everything that grows above the ground. You see many stems that grow out of the roots of a single plant. The stems are long and gangly. The leaves sprout from nodes on the stems and are opposite each other. A plant supports several stems, each usually having 5 flowers. Chickweed is a winter annual that can become perennialized in cool, moist areas. This means chickweed comes back each year. Their seeds germinate in late summer and into the fall and even into early spring. The plants produce white flowers and seeds in the spring, which is their season of growth. It produces seeds within 5 weeks of germination and continues to produce seeds for months. Common chickweed forms prostrate, dense patches in turf grasses, but it can reach heights of several inches, growing upright in a dense patch of the garden that allows the plants to hold each other up. This picture on this slide was taken last week at Royal Lake in Fairfax. Chickweed grows throughout the world and is common in all areas of the United States. And no, chickweed is not native to the United States. It was brought here by the European settlers. As the name implies, seeds are a preferred food for chickens and some birds. The flowers are small, white, and less than 1/4 of an inch wide. Each flower has 5 sepals that protect the flower. If you look carefully, you will see that the petals are lobed shaped, giving the appearance of 10 petals, but there are actually only 5. The fruit is a 1-celled capsule at the end of the stem, filled with multiple tiny seeds. They are light brown in color. See the fine hairs on the sepals surrounding the flower? Leaves are oval-shaped, smooth. They tend to ruffle around the edges, but they are pointed at the tip. They are light green in color, and they grow opposite to each other. This plant is typically prostrate, forming a dense mat. The stem is long, slender, and branching. There are spaces along the stem between leaf pairs. The roots are shallow and fibrous. There is a single line of white hairs running along the length of each stem. If you break the stem, you will find a single string inside. This is important. We'll talk a little more about this later. Cultural control. The first method of control is prevention by maintaining a healthy lawn, as Simon spoke to earlier. This will help prevent common chickweed seedlings and other weeds from growing in your lawn. Mowing too low removes too much of the grass's food-producing ability. The grass starves and the lawn thins, allowing weeds in. Common chickweed can be easily hand-pulled or removed with a hand tool. Be sure to remove entire plant and root. Weeding is most effective if done early when the plants are small. It doesn't appear that this gardener's weeding pulling technique will remove the entire plant with root. You have to be sure to get under and around the entire plant, then pull. Key message we want to send to homeowners is while common chickweed plant can be found almost anywhere, know that it does die out in sunny areas by midsummer. Those growing in shady areas die out by late summer. This plant cannot tolerate prolonged high temperatures. Chemical controls are a last resort, and they should not be used to control common chickweed. If a unique situation requires an aggressive approach, choose a post-emergent product with either the active ingredient dicamba or 2,4-D plus dichloroprop plus mecoprop, which is sold as Weed Destroy. Be sure to read the entire product label before each use. Follow printed instructions to the letter. Heed all cautions and warnings. Maybe the best suggestion of all is to consider adding common chickweed to your diet. It is great for snacking, in salads, or even as an herbal tea. It is high in vitamins and minerals, especially if eaten raw. The leaves, especially the new growth, are very tasty, but also stems and flowers are edible. You could even grow your own common chickweed in a window box or even in a planter. I want to add a disclaimer here about the need for you to be cautious. Use the plant description we used in this presentation to identify common chickweed. Because there are pretender plants out there, you want to be positively sure that you have identified common chickweed. Scarlet Pimpernil, yes, Scarlet Pimpernil is a pretender plant, which is poisonous if eaten. There are some major differences between the two. Scarlet Pimpernil has square stems. It lacks the single line of white hairs on each stem and also lacks the string inside the stem. It has a splotchy red hue on the undersides of the leaves, and its flowers are usually a salmon red color. When in doubt, you know you can always take your weed to a local extension agent for positive identification. Make sure you harvest only from places where you are sure the soil has not been contaminated with herbicides and/or pesticides. Avoid harvesting in areas that are frequented by dogs or near busy roadways. Some people have reported GI symptoms from eating huge quantities of common chickweed. Okay, lastly, this is the list of resources that I used for this presentation. The edible weed reference on this list even has a recipe for common chickweed pie. So happy foraging and eating, everyone.
Thank you, Sheila. I still cannot believe we came to a lunch and lawn session and learned about chickweed pie. How great for our St. Patrick's Day celebration. So Leslie, you're not going to tell us that we can, I don't know, make crabgrass stew or anything, are you?
No, not doing that. So I'm going to talk about large crabgrass today. This is a drawing of the crabgrass. Note the seed heads. So those are not your friends. It is the #1 weed in lawns. It's a summer annual, and there are many species that will pop up in your lawn. It is native to Europe and Asia and was introduced here in 1849 as a potential forage crop. To identify it, I'm sure everybody's seen it. It turns into big clumps of really coarse grass and kind of spreads across your lawn and your neighbor's lawn and reproduces by seed heads. And one plant can produce 150,000 seeds, which get into your soil, and they will stay viable for up to 5 years in your soil. So this is a yearly control effort that you're going to have to battle over and over and over again. It does require a lot of sunlight to germinate. So a thick stand of turf grass is your best defense against the crabgrass and other weeds that could take over your lawn. If your lawn is reasonably dense during spring growing season, your crabgrass and other weeds will be minimal. So lawn maintenance is essential. Make sure the grass is cut at the proper height. You don't want to take more than 1/3 of your grass blade off at a time. And this picture shows what happens if you cut it too short. The one on the right is where it was cut very short. And all the crabgrass is popping up because it has the sunlight to germinate. And the grass on the left is where it was cut properly. So make sure that your mower is set fairly high, and you want it also to be sharp so it doesn't damage your grass as you cut the blades. Watering is essential. You want proper irrigation to build your turf and limit your weeds. You don't want to water in the evening. Watering in the morning is the best time. And you want to water deeply but infrequently during drought. I think that they say like you want to water 1 inch a week. If you water too frequently, weed seeds will germinate. Chemical control, there are pre-emergents that you can apply in early to mid-February, so we're a little late to do that now, and you can repeat it in 8 to 10 weeks. If you're seeding your lawn at the same time, remember that the pre-emergents don't differentiate between your grass and weed seeds, and you'll end up with nothing. So they must be watered to be sure that the product dissolves. So you can apply it to a lawn that's already established. Some available are Benefen and trifurulin, dithiopyr, pendimethalin, and prodiamine. Read entire product label before each use. Follow the printed instructions to the letter and heed all cautions and warnings. There's also an organic method, which is a pre-emergent, and this is corn gluten meal. It releases a protein that slows the development of the weed roots. You need to apply it on a dry lawn, and it doesn't work well if there's a lot of rain, and it doesn't work for a really long time, but it doesn't have all the chemicals in it. So I use it, works pretty well. Okay. Other chemical control methods, if you have a bare or patchy lawn and are trying to reseed, you can buy a seed and crabgrass control together. That won't destroy your grass seeds. Two products for this are Tenacity, which is mesotrione, and Tuperson, which is Siduron. So you can apply those together. Remember, if you're seeding right now, it may not make it through, like if you're starting a lawn right now, you have a good chance it's not going to make it through the summer because your roots aren't going to be established, and you'll end up with a patchy lawn by late summer. You can also use your post-emergent herbicides to attack the already established crabgrass. This would be your quinclorac. So you want to apply that when the plants are young. You can also pull it. Make sure you get everything, and try to pull it before it goes to seed, because you eliminate a lot of the problems down the road. And these are the references.
So I'm really bummed we won't be making crabgrass stew, but I'm excited to start getting to some of the questions. And so we don't have a lot of time left, but we do have two people who are on our call who submitted questions. And so we're going to skip a couple of our questions that we had prepared in advance in order to get there. And so David, I think Leslie, you're taking care of David's question?
Yes, question from David in Herndon. The previous owners had a dog, and there were large pine trees on the neighbor's property that dropped needles into our yard. I attached some photos and hoping to get suggestions on how to make the grass grow in the bare spots. The ground is not very level either. When it rains, water pools around these dirt spots because they are dipped. So number one, you want to get a soil test done to find out what you're dealing with. If there's pine trees, it might be pretty acidic, so you're going to have to add some lime, most likely, to the area. And if there is a lot of dog waste, it might have a high nitrogen level already. This will dissipate in time, but you need to find out what you're starting with. The area might not be as bad as it looks. My lawn looks pretty bad right now because the grass hasn't really greened up yet. And so you might want to give it a few weeks to see what you're dealing with too. Things are pretty dormant at the time. So over the next few weeks, when it gets warm, they'll start to green up. If you overseed now, it's probably not going to make it through the summer because the roots aren't going to be established. And when we get to the hot and dry days of summer, the grass will die. And the area looks pretty shady. So you might want to like get it through the season and see what you're dealing with, you know, depending on the sun. You need 4 to 6 hours of sun to grow a decent lawn. And the soil also looks pretty compacted. So you might want to aerate it and add some topsoil to the area.
Can I ask 2 quick follow-up questions,
Sure.
Tanya? So there's a lot of exposed roots as well. Is there something I need to worry about there? Should I put something over them? Or is that just part of having big trees in your yard?
You don't want to cover up your roots, from what I understand, because they're looking for air. So I wouldn't put a big heavy dose of topsoil or anything on top of them, because you might kill your trees. So,
okay.
But another suggestion would be to put a nice little path in there and grow, you know, like a walkway, and add your ferns and hostas and shade-loving perennials, which is up on the top. There's also native sedges that you can grow that are low maintenance and do well in the shade and dry soil. That Pennsylvania sedge, which is on the bottom. There's also Appalachian sedge, rosy sedge, and plantain leaf sedge. So if you don't want to go out and mow it all the time, these are native plants that once you get them established, you really don't have to do much with them. A really good website for this type of thing is www.plantnovanatives.org. They have a great selection of, or great ideas for planting in shade and dry areas that once you get them established, they're really pretty low maintenance and they attract pollinators. So.
Hope that helps, David. Hope you come back and show us the amazing lawn that you have next fall. So we also have a couple questions. Let me see. Whoop, I just changed the wrong thing. All right. Yep, here we go. And so we had this question just also went into the chat. Is this one also you, Leslie? Or
yes,
okay.
Yeah. We just moved into this home, so we were unfamiliar with the sunlight patterns. We also had a walkway redone, which displaced the soil around the walkway and has led to bare spots. So again, you need to test the soil, find out what you're dealing with. Also kind of give it some time. The sun and shade patterns change as the seasons progress, and so you don't really know what you're dealing with. You don't know if you have a sunny lawn or a shady lawn, and don't forget you need like 4 to 6 hours of sunlight to grow a decent turf. So if you have less than that, then you might want to come up with an alternative plan. In the area beside the sidewalk, which was probably ripped up during the sidewalk renovation, you probably want to get rid of the rocks that are left behind, add some topsoil and compost, and I would sod it and water fairly frequently to keep it moist, and then reseed in the fall. If the area was dead due to salt products, like if you sprinkled salt to get rid of the ice, you can treat it with compost and topsoil and sod or seed in the fall. So, and it's hard to tell if the lawn's going to do. It might green up. Again, it's probably pretty dormant right now. So I think that remains to be seen what's going to happen, but reseed in the fall. And then these little patches here, the top one, we can't really tell what's there. I think it's a vinca, which is actually invasive. But some good ground covers that would do really well. There are some hostas and ferns and your shade-loving perennials if that's a shitty spot. And in the bottom, there's a Pachysandra, which is another invasive. Well, it's not invasive, but it's not native. So if you want to get rid of that, you got to rip it out by the roots and plant another native plant. But And again, the plantnovanatives.org is a great place to look for ground covers and perennials that attract your native species and animals.
So we hope that that's helpful. I do need to give you guys a couple of closing thoughts and some information. We are very thankful that you joined us today. There's a huge body of research on what it takes to have a healthy lawn, as well as minimizing weeds and diseases. You can look at fairfaxgardening.org. It has a lot of articles and some quick links to resources. And you can sign up for our monthly newsletter. It's where you go to register for future programs too. You can also search for topics through any search engine using .edu or .gov websites to ensure you're receiving unbiased research-based information. Virginia Tech is our go-to university website since that is our parent organization. While you're on the fairfaxgardening.org site, you can find more information and even detailed weed sheets. If you click on programs, home turf, and then you'll see a list on the left of the lunch and lawn weeds. We typically have our session recordings posted in about 24 hours on the VCE-Fairfax County YouTube channel. I know Jenny already dropped that link up in the chat. You can review past lunch and lawn recordings as well as a variety of Fairfax County Master Gardening programs. We want to thank the Virginia Cooperative Extension and the Fairfax County Master Gardener Association for supporting this program. Please register for our next session on March 31st, when we're going to be talking about lawn repairs. So submit any questions and photos you want to discuss on that program when you register through our fairfaxgardening.org website. We hope to see you then. Thank you so much for attending our lunch and lawn session. Have a great day.